Hi everybody, thanks for coming. Just before we start, just a couple of wee housekeeping things. The loose through the back in the corner, help yourself. There is a hot water rump beside the fridge, coffee by the sink, just come and go, help yourself as you please. There is no fire exit through there, that's it, the main door. So it's cut children first and then throw them over your shoulder as you go. Today we welcome Colin Fox, the third of our afternoons with, and it's good to see people turning out again. Colin is the convener of the SSP? Co-convener of the SSP and board member of
Yes,
Scotland. Yes, Scotland as well. So without any further ado, Colin Fox.
Thank you very much. I feel like Ronnie Barker up here, like open all hours. Though Ronnie Barker's now been preceded by David Jason, doesn't he? So, showing the age there. I wanted to say thanks very much for inviting me. It's brilliant to be here. Lovely to be here. I'm in we have a shop or a hub in the south of Edinburgh that I'm in a lot and all that. So I spoke to Mike last week and goes, what do you know about Kirkcaldy? What can I say up there? He says, oh, they've just opened a new shop and all that. So it's great to be here. It's a pleasure to come and meet you and speak to you all and get a chance to reflect on where the independence case is at, where the independence movement is at, and our prospects for securing self-determination for Scotland. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Thank you for inviting me. This is Roisin here. Roisin came over with me. Roisin's the other co-spokesperson of the Scottish Socialist Party. She was elected last weekend at our conference. I've been the joint spokesperson, whatever I am. I've been doing it for 14 years, right? Roisin's been doing it for a week, so if I get any difficult questions, I'll be passing them on to her. So, first thing I wanted to say, the Scottish Socialist Party's been around for nearly 20 years now. We support an independent socialist Scotland and a modern democratic republic. And I was struck by last weekend, you know, you had the Remembrance Sunday, which is the centenary of the end of the First World War. And it reminded me that Sunday, reminded me a couple of things. First of all, my dad was in the services, his father was in the services, his grandfather was killed in the First World War. And it reminded me, I think I do this, probably we're all reminded every Remembrance Sunday about those people who gave their lives for Britain as it was then. And I always wear a white poppy on Remembrance Sunday because it was supposed to be the war to end all wars. And that never happened, did it? Because there was war after war after war after that. And I'm always clear that my great-grandfather died, your great-grandfathers and grandfathers died for there to be no more wars. And I always think Remembrance Sunday is about remembering the pledge that they give, that it's a celebration of peace, no celebration of war, no commemorating, you know, glorifying dying and killing people from other parts of the world. It's a commitment to ensure that that never happens again. So, but I was struck by the fact that the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, it's also 100 years since people like James Connolly were active as we are, John Maclean active as we are, and they were passionate advocates of independence. James Connolly, Edinburgh's most famous socialist son, John Maclean, the leader of the Red Clydesiders, 100 years ago, were in places like Kirkcaldy arguing for independence then, and a tradition that goes back a long time. And part of their tradition, and the tradition I belong to, is the British state committed a great many crimes in our name. And it wasn't done in our name. It wasn't something I want to be part of. They argued that Scotland, being independent, a separate nation determining its own future and separate from what Britain had done in its name, was not just a good thing for the people of Scotland and not just a good thing for the people of the remaining peoples of these islands, it was a good thing for the world itself, because the British Empire had done some terrible things then and did so afterwards. And therefore I believe that the Scottish Socialist Party's support for an independent socialist Scotland goes back 100 years. I'm simply here passing on the baton that Maclean and Connolly, R.B. Cunningham Graham, Robert Burns, Lewis Grassy Gibbon, you name them all, they gave it to our forefathers and foremothers They passed it to me, and I'm here to pass it on to you and to your sons and daughters for the future. Because regardless of whether we get independence this week, this month, this year, or 5 years, it's a cause that is profoundly noble, honourable. It's been handed to us to people who fought for it a long time. And in Edinburgh, where I'm campaigning 4 days a week, I'm in Princes Street Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday campaigning, the SSP's campaigning for a £10 an hour living wage. And people don't say to me, oh, you're that guy who used to be in the Scottish Parliament, who sang Robert Burns is a man for all that, instead of taking the oath of allegiance to the Queen. They go, no, you're that guy we see in Princes Street every day with a megaphone and the boards campaigning for £10 an hour. And I'll say, no, I'm not there every day. Aye, no, I see you there every day I'm there, I see you there. And I say, well, I'm campaigning for something, and it's not that far, and this will test the memory banks of older friends here. 1950s, Wendy Wood, who was a member of the SNP, used to campaign for independence in the 1950s at the Mound in Edinburgh, and she was ridiculed. That'll never happen, nobody supports it, away and do something else with your time, etc. Right? Well, I feel a wee bit like Wendy Wood sometimes, because we're campaigning for something that we're committed to, and if my life finishes, then I can say, well, I did my bit. You know, I did my bit for a noble cause, fighting for an independent socialist Scotland and a modern democratic republic. And if that's what I'm known for, well, fine, I would be happy with that, you know. So I bring you that, not in the sense that I'm looking backwards so much, but sometimes today it helps to look back, not just on what history gave us, but the circumstance we're grappling with today. Experience in politics is a good thing if you can turn around and say, I know circumstances, and I went through circumstances that are similar to the Brexit discussion and debate that is so engulfed Britain just now. And I have to say, I was on Sputnik Radio on Friday, and the woman phoned us up. Patrick Harvey, you know, had said in the Scottish Parliament, now's the time to go for a second referendum on independence. And I was saying, I'm not sure if this is the right time to go for a second referendum on independence when we're in the midst of the Brexit discussion and debate. But I tell you one thing, if you're interested in politics and you're interested in high stakes politics, this is a joyous time to be alive, because right out in front of you, in the next month in Britain, Parliament is going to make a decision with immense and profound consequences, not just for the present, but for many, many years to come. And I'm wise enough not to count my chickens before they're hatched and realise that you're dealing with a great deal of skullduggery and a great deal of influences that would, in the face of it, lead you to one conclusion, in the face of it, and actually may well lead to another. And what I mean by that is, I've not been surprised that Theresa May got a deal with the EU. I've not been surprised that she got it through her cabinet. I won't be surprised on Sunday when they meet wherever it is in Europe and they sign a deal. And I tell you this, I won't be surprised if Parliament passes that deal in December when it comes in front of them. Because for me, what you've got is circumstances where Britain and the EU, Britain voted, as you well remember, 2016, voted to leave the European Union. But it did so with a hair's breadth of difference, didn't it? 52 to 48 in Scotland, there wasn't a hair's breadth of difference. There was a considerable vote to remain. But it was a unitary vote within Britain, so within Britain you've got 52-48. And I have to say this to you, I was in Spain the day that everybody voted. I'd cast my vote by postal ballot. I was in Spain helping Podemos with the general election in Spain. This is a left-wing party in Spain. I'll not tell you too much about Spain, but just to explain where I was the day the referendum took place. And I was in Spain helping this left-wing party fight the Spanish general election. And people are saying to me, oh, you've just come to Britain, how's the vote going to go? And I says, well, I think it'll be close, but you know, I think Remain are going to win, but it'll probably be no much in it. So we have some sangria and wine, 10 o'clock, the news comes on for Sky, dong, and it says, Britain, the prediction is Britain, will be very close, but Britain will vote to Remain. And they're all going, oh, well done, you're so clever and all that, marvellous, just as you predicted, and have some more sangria. And all. So I had more sangria. I woke up 7 o'clock in the morning with a sear heat, with the sangria, turned on the telly and it was, Britain voted to leave by a hair's breadth, and you've got Humpties like Farage and Boris Johnson and the rest of it, right? But the fact is, Britain voted to leave the European Union and the vote was very close. And sometimes there's no getting away from that fact. So roll on 2.5 years and Theresa May has come forward with a deal that says what? That Britain is leaving the EU, but we're staying in the customs union, staying in the single market, and staying with the European Court of Justice ruling for the time being. And actually, that's exactly what the results say, isn't it? So she's turned round to the leavers, the hard right in her own party, and say, look, you're leaving. You got what you wanted, but you only won it by hair's breadth. So the other side's got to get some of what they wanted too. And in a way, the deal reflects the complete polarised division that Britain is in, and it's a bitter, and it's a deep-seated division. And if you need any reflection of why that's the case, have a look at the Tory party today. You know, they're on the telly openly saying how much they hate one another. Oh, you know, there's all that kind of... This, remember, the Conservative Party, the most successful political party in the Western world. 200 years they've been around. They don't split. They haven't split in 200 years. Other parties have split. I was in the Labour Party in the 1980s when the SDP split with Labour. There's been other splits. The Liberal Democrats split, became the Alliance and went back to being another party. The Tories pride themselves on, they do their backstabbing behind closed doors, you know. They used to say any leader they didn't like. This is this kind of new 1922 committee thing. In the past, the Tories used to get their leader, the grandees would come in, 4 guys in suits like mine, and they say, listen, Prime Minister, there's the revolver on the table. Either you blow your brains out or we blow your brains out, but one way or another, 5 minutes time, your brains is on that table. They didn't do it by all hullabaloo in the 6 o'clock news, do they? Now you've got the real divisions within the Tory party, and they're openly saying they hate Theresa May. But you know what strikes me about the vote that Parliament's got to face in December? Winston Churchill famously said, no, he wasn't a socialist, Winston Churchill famously said, democracy is a terrible political system. The alternatives are worse. And what you've got for Theresa May in December when that comes to Parliament is a crappy deal, a terrible deal, a rubbish deal that most people don't like. The problem is, all the alternatives are worse. Because there's not going to be a second referendum. There's not going to be a second referendum. A second referendum in the British political context is essentially saying, see that vote you have? Doesn't mean hee-haw. And who's arguing for it? The folk that lost. It's not going to happen, is it? It's not the way politics works out in this country. That tends towards anarchy. There's not going to be a second vote so that the folk that lost can win the next time. That's not part of the way politics is conducted in this way. And there's not going to be another deal either. So Jeremy Corbyn's saying, we're going to vote against it, and we'll go to the EU and get another deal. And on Sunday, they're already saying it this week, Barney and others are saying, there'll not be any more deals. We've got you out of a barrel. You voted to leave by a hair's breadth. So negotiating terms, you're in a miserable minging position. We know where we stand. You're not going to get another deal. So the choice isn't another deal, isn't another referendum. It's whether they vote to accept this rubbish deal or they walk out without a deal. And then you've got anarchy in the markets. You've got big capital, big businesses going, we need this deal, we want this deal, and I think you'll see some pressure under it. So that, for me, if somebody's interested in politics, my expectation, put it no stronger than that, is that Theresa May will probably get that deal through Parliament. She may well get it through in the second bite of the cherry. Hands up here, anybody who was active 2018. Were you involved in politics in 2008, rather? 2008? So that's like 10 years ago. Well done, that gentleman. Right, just you and me then. 2008. George Bush put up a bill after the financial crash in America saying that we're going to bail out all the banks in America. They have to maintain the capitalist system. And I remember watching the debate on the telly, and you've got all these Republicans and Democrats saying, that George Bush is a communist. He's nothing but a communist, coming here, bailing out the banks with public money to bail out private banks and the rest of it. And they voted it down. They voted down his deal. 3 days later they voted for it on the basis that Wall Street and everybody else was going, Raj, you can't. There isn't any alternative, it's that deal or no deal. So they voted against it, got out of their system, and back in 3 days and ate up their porridge like good laddies and lassies that they're today. That might happen in Britain. I think that the circumstances are fascinating. But you've got circumstances where all this idea that Theresa May could go to a better deal, they're complete bunkum. And you've got the population of the country complete split in two. All of which, we ask ourselves in the independence movement in Scotland, what's the consequences for us? What's the consequences of all this for the independence movement? And I think I alluded it to there, those people who want to say that we should throw in the debate on independence into that fire, into that Guy Fawkes bonfire, I think is the wrong thing to do. You need to let that fire burn out before you start setting another fire. A big debate, which we've seen in Scotland, the vote last time, okay, it was 45 to 55, but we've also got a fairly polarised point of view. And my attitude has been since 2014, what the Yes movement, the independence movement has got to do, we've got to focus our attention in making a better case for independence than we did the last time. We've got to be grown up and big enough and adult enough to say, what was wrong with the case we put the last time that we didn't win? Why did we fail to persuade enough working class people in Kirkcaldy, in Fife, in Motherwell, where I'm frae, Edinburgh, elsewhere, those areas that didn't vote yes, and Fife's a really, really important part of Scotland. I don't have to come out of Kirkcaldy and suck up to you, because you know that's already the case, right? Scotland's not going to vote for its independence if Fife doesn't. This is a big, big area, it's a big, big proletarian area. Don't persuade Fife. In the working class communities of Scotland, you'll never get independence. And my attitude has been in 2014, working with others, is to say, our economic case wasn't good enough. We didn't win the argument on currency. We didn't win the argument on pensions. We didn't win the argument on working class people knowing that they will be materially better off by independence. So I see that as a challenge. I'm not going to whip myself over it. I'm saying we have to do better. That we have to persuade working class people in Kirkcaldy and elsewhere that your wages will be better, your job will be secure, your elderly care will be covered, your hospital, education, all the services that you rely on will be better provided for in an independent country where the great wealth of this country is distributed more evenly and fairly amongst us all, rather than the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and further apart they come. And I come here, I live in Edinburgh now. Edinburgh, second richest city in Britain after London. Actually, the second richest city in Britain after London. I don't mean pro rata. I lived in London for 10 years before I moved to Edinburgh. Population of Edinburgh, 7 million. Population of Edinburgh, 450,000. Hold on a minute. So Edinburgh is about a 20th, near a 20th, a 15th of the size of London. It's the second richest city in Britain. Though there are bigger cities, and it's because of finance capital, because the wealth is there. And it's a rich city. But in the 20 years I've been there, the rich have got richer, and the poor have got poorer. You know, council house been built in Edinburgh worth a damn. Wages, it's now there's a labour shortage in Edinburgh, but you don't have to go far to find people working for garbage wages, on 0-hour contracts and minimum wage. Where we do the stall in Edinburgh is right next to the Apple shop. The richest company in the world, the first company in world history to trade more than $1 trillion of value in a year. $1 trillion, I don't even know how much that is, but it's $1 trillion worth of value, and yet they pay their staff £7.83, which is the statutory minimum they're allowed to pay them. And that epitomises what's wrong with Scotland today, and Britain, and the Western world. That the billionaires are getting richer and richer, and the vast majority are toiling. We've got fuel poverty in Scotland. We've got 1 million people in Scotland living in poverty, and most of them are in work. Most of them are in work. When I was looking at the Gaelic map there and finding out where Motherwell was, I grew up with mass unemployment. Who were the poor? They weren't working. You wanted to know where the poor were? They were folk who weren't working, they're unemployed, they'd be signing on the dole like I was when I left school. No, the poor are in work. They're working for Costas, serving you a barista or a coffee. They're in McDonald's, they're working as care staff, they're working on buttons, and maybe they've got 2 or 3 jobs. They're insecure and they're in work. I thought we were supposed to be in favour of full employment, where people are working a full-time wage and can feed themselves, feed their family, pay their rent, pay their gas and electric bill. Apparently that's not possible in 21st century Scotland. Well, I tell you what, if independence isn't about eradicating all of that, it's about nothing. Nothing at all. I'm from Motherwell. I grew up, my granddads were steelworkers. My tradition is proud working class collectivity. We stood beside each other. People were in the union. I grew up in Motherwell. Everybody voted Labour. I didn't know anybody who didn't vote Labour. I went to Strathclyde University later on, and I come across people further, you didn't vote Labour? I mean, the only person I know who didn't vote Labour was a guy called Bobby Somerville, and he lived in the scheme I lived in. And I mentioned Bobby's name because, you know the film Ne Passaran? you heard this film? It's just come out in the last few weeks. It's about Rolls-Royce workers in East Kilbride making jet aero engines. They were contracted, Rolls-Royce got a contract for providing jet aero engines for General Pinochet's dictatorship in Chile. And the union guys at East Kilbride, Bobby was in the Communist Party as a shop steward, refused to send them. They made them and said, you're not getting them. We're not having you strafing our Salvador Allende's palace and assassinating the democratically elected government and your dictatorship, you're not getting them, and they refused to send them. On there was court cases and legal action and all, and the guys went, don't care, you're not getting them, they were sitting here. You try and come and get them, we on strike, 4,000 days on strike. And they never sent them yet. And they made a film recently called Ne Pasarán, They Shall Not Pass. In other words, General Pinochet's not getting past the security in East Kilbride factory to get those jet engines for Chile and Santiago. Bobby Somerville's one of the 3 guys, they're in their 80s now in the film. And he lived in the scheme I lived in, and he was in the Communist Party. He was the only person that I ever knew did he vote Labour. Because he voted Communist, right? But in that tradition, you know, people saw the Labour Party as the escape route. Labour built our council houses. Labour delivered the National Health Service. Labour brought in the welfare state. Labour were working people's party, and the Tories voted for the rich. And all of a sudden, that illusion disappeared. One after another, John Smith, Neil Kinnock, Tony Blair. Tony Blair, I can't help saying the name and feeling that I need to retch and spit. Sometimes when I would get excited, I used to mistakenly refer to Tony Benn and Tony Blair. You know, the difference between them, you couldn't get further apart. I was a great admirer of Tony Benn, the guy that got me involved in politics, because that's where I came from, that tradition. He was one of ours. Alright, he came from a very, very wealthy background, Viscount Stansgate, had to go to court to get rid of his peerage, not right? But Tony Benn was one of my heroes. And the idea, Tony Blair, who went to Fetties in Edinburgh, to all extensive purpose was a Tory, he destroyed the idea that Labour was a vehicle for social change in this country forever. And it's never recovered, and it will never recover, because people are not going back to that. But those values that I grew up with Motherwell, that you grew up with in Kirkcaldy, when the Nolonin factory was here, you were understood that you had to work for working people, you had to work for your living, you never got hee-haw for anything. And those values, I think, is at the centre of the independence movement. The independence movement knows that Scotland will only succeed through its own hard work. There'll be no shirkers, there'll be no room for carrying passengers, like Monarchy or any of the rest of them. The Queen will have to go down the pit at Seafield Colliery like everybody else if that's what we deem's got to be done. This is about a democratic, you know, crusade we're on. About Scotland saying, we're big enough, ugly enough, strong enough to make our own decisions. And if we get them wrong, they'll be our decisions nonetheless. If we get them right, fair play. If we get them wrong, then we learn from our mistakes. We learn and move on. I'm no... I was born in Motherwell 1959, there you are, giving my age away, and I say to people, wasn't my choice. Nobody asked me where I wanted to be born. If I was born in Argentina or the Congo or Beijing, it wouldn't make a difference to me, but I happened to be born in Scotland, and this has shaped my life, and the people beside us shaped my life. My family and my extended community and my family, the industries that you worked in, the values that you grew up. And I believe I grew up with socialist values. I didn't know there were socialist values at the time. And to me, here they are all the years later, they're as valuable and as relevant today as they've ever been. Nobody gets left behind. Everybody's got a house to live in. Nobody in Kirkcaldy should be allowed to die of hypothermia this winter because they can't afford the bill that Scottish Power sends through the door for them. In an energy-rich country like this, I happen to believe that our energy industry should be publicly owned. It used to be. My mum's bill came in for the South of Scotland Electricity Board, publicly owned. If you lived in North of Scotland, it's the Hydro Board, publicly owned, publicly built for, with public money, like the Cruachan Dam. The North Sea oil industry in 1964 discovered, and Norway had the wisdom to say that in our water, in our ground, that belongs to us and we're keeping it. And what the British do? Gave it to Esso, gave it to BP, gave it to Shell, gave it to Chevron, gave it away, private, we get nothing. Now Norway's the richest country in the world, with a sovereign wealth fund with so much money in it, the government says you're not allowed to spend it. You're not allowed to spend it. You can invest it, and you can use a percentage of the interest and the dividend you make out of the investments to spend, but you can't spend the 3 trillion that's there. And that could have been Scotland. We could have eradicated fuel poverty. We could have made sure that there's no kids in Glasgow or Kirkcaldy or anywhere else living in poverty. We no shoes to wear in this town that are sufficient to see them through the winter. Wains with runny noses because they've not got a proper jacket when they winter in coaches. Wains that don't have enough food in their belly, who go to school hungry, and the teachers will come in and say that Wain's not had any breakfast 5 days running before he gets to school. Can't he concentrate on his lessons because it's got nothing in its belly? There's nothing in its oven to fire up its brain. That shouldn't be happening in 21st century Scotland, and that's what independence is about for me. And the last thing I wanted to say, because I've spoke here behind my counter and you've no bought in yet, is to say that for me, the independence movement's challenges now, we've got to improve our case and we've got to come through with tactics that say our objective is to persuade Scotland's working class majority that's in their interests. Don't pander to the rich. Don't pander to them who'd never vote no and will say if Scotland becomes independent we'll leave the country. Well, my attitude is, there's your bus fare, go now. Because you either stay and you take the decisions we all take and you commit yourself to building the same country that belongs to us all, or you stop leeching off the rest of us and say, you don't have to pay for the roads, you don't have to pay for the hospitals, you don't have to pay for the schools, you don't have to pay for elderly care, you don't have to pay, you don't have to pay, you have to pay. And frankly, you have to start paying more taxes in the big corporations, and more taxes if you're J.K. Rowling, more taxes if you're in finance capital in Edinburgh, more taxes by millionaires. And I actually think that's a moral argument. People say, this is my country, I've been successful, I want to put something back. I want to ensure that nobody's left behind, that nobody's in the cold, that nobody's not got a coat for the winter, nobody's got, insufficient food, etc. Or people are waiting a long, long time for an operation and they shouldn't have to. Those are the values that are important to me. And my attitude is, I think the case for independence in Scotland is totally different from the one I remember 40 years ago when I got active. And they used to say back then, Scotland's too wee, it's too poor, and it's too stupid to run its own affairs. And actually, the sensible people in the No campaign, which I understand used to be in the shop 2 or 3 doors down when they had their shop, right? The sensible people don't argue that anymore. Because they don't say Scotland's too wee to run its own affairs, because you look around the United Nations, 212 countries, and the majority are all about the size of Scotland, so that doesn't bear thinking about anymore. Too stupid, you can't argue that in this day and age. The universities, our kids at universities, clever wains, we could go further with our education, but we're not too stupid, we're not too strong, and we're not too poor. We'd be one of the richest countries in the world. One of the richest countries in the world where resources and hydroelectric power, renewable energy, as well as island gas and whisky and all the things that we'd have, all the evidence is clear that we'd be one of the richest countries in the world. And it's because that's the case. The No campaign, the British state is so terrified of losing us. I've got a sticker, my daughter put it in the back of my car this morning on her way to work. Scotland, no place for nuclear weapons. And one of the things that's clear is the British state's nuclear weapons are based at Faslane. And the French have already said, Britain, you don't have any nuclear weapons, you'll not be needing that seat in the UN Security Council then, will you? So in other words, the whole panoply of what the British Empire represents and what it wants to be is undermined by independence. And so attitude is, I don't ever underestimate my enemy. I know what my enemy wants to do. They want to stop us from being independent. They will use tactics we never seen the first time round when we come to a second independence referendum. I know my history. I know what the British did in Ireland to prevent the Irish getting their independence. We're still living with it today, 80, 90 years after partition. I know what the British did in India, pulled out in 1947 and left them to slaughter each other, Muslims and Hindus, tens of millions of people butchered. And we've now got religious states, Pakistan, Bangladesh and India. And that was down to them basically saying, we run it, we pull out, you're a basket case, you don't know what you're doing, you'll end up slaughtering each other. Same all the empires did pull out in Africa. They pull out Africa and they say black people couldn't run their own affairs. You wait and see. If the Belgians pull out the Congo, they'll all be fighting each other. If the Portuguese pull out of Mozambique, they'll all be fighting each other. That's what they do. That's who we're fighting against. And I don't underestimate them. But the most powerful thing we've got in our favour is the power of democracy. And the democratic power and the democratic right that people have. If we can persuade the people of Scotland, the working class majority in this country, that's in their material interests to support independence and to vote yes next time, then frankly that trumps anything the other side can do. And I look forward to committing myself and the Scottish Socialist Party, we're as dedicated to that prize as we've ever been. An independent socialist Scotland, like Connolly and Maclean and R.B. Cunningham, Graham and so many others fought for in the past, is a prize worth having. And if it means we struggle, we struggle. And if it means it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years. We commit to ourselves to building and improving our case, building our organisation, and standing and improving our case and faith in our trust in working people in Scotland who've never let us down. Thank you very much. I feel as if I should stand here because it's a conversation. I'll go down there, you know. I'll stand here if you have any questions. I'm happy to.
Just open the floor, just fire away. At the back, yeah.
Aye. A whole lot of things you brought up there.
What's your first name?
Charlie.
Charlie.
List of questions as long as my own, but we'll start with the very last thing you said, democracy. Now, we all want democracy here for Scotland and an independent democracy.
Yep.
I've been watching what's been happening around about us, and I'm wondering if we're going to get it at all. Because if you think about it right at the moment, you've had this power grab by Westminster to take the powers away from the devolved Parliament. You've also got this campaign, which I think is coming from higher up than just the shops, etc., to make everything British. We even had an instance just recently of Harris Tweed being advertised as British Tweed. And not that long ago, it was British whiskey being advertised. And I just wonder if after this Brexit thing goes through, if she's not going to just collapse the whole bloody lot, and we'll lose Cardiff, and we'll lose Holyrood, and they'll never bother to put anybody back in Scotland, and we're going to be left with Britain and no bloody choice.
Do you mind if I take 2 or 3 questions at once to save me doing all the talking? I'll come back to it, but...
Colin, I've asked this question of a number of speakers. My position is I voted yes and I campaigned for yes. I'm now moved to a position where I'm undecided. I'm not no, but I'm undecided. And the reason is basically because I wanted independence for the reasons that you laid out when you were speaking. I wanted a socialist Scotland, in short. And that was what the first Yes campaign was all about, and I was confident that that's where we were heading if we got independence. Since then, of course, what we've seen is a tsunami of Tory politicians getting elected. We used to have 1 Tory councillor here in Fife. Now we've got 13 or something like that. The same thing happened in the Scottish Parliament, the same thing's happened in Westminster. So what we've seen is Scotland moving to voting Tory, Scotland moving to the right. Now it may be that what this is tactical voting because the no voters saw the Tory party as being clearer on being anti-independence. But what if it's not? What if it's not? What if we end up in the nightmare scenario as socialists where we've got Jeremy Corbyn as a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, which doesn't include Scotland, and we've got Ruth Davidson running Scotland as everyone votes Tory? How can you, how could you reassure people like me that if we vote independence we're not going to lock ourselves into a situation where things actually get worse?
Okay, any other questions?
I just, you asked, I think...
What's your first name?
Roy. You asked who was involved in 2008, and I wasn't. I wasn't involved in politics for 50 odd years of my life. I wasn't really interested. I was away a lot, and for lots of reasons. I've now been involved in canvassing in loads of elections and that. Now I'm involved in this show and that. The reason I'm involved is for the very reasons you talked about. I've got 2 grandchildren and I want them to grow up in a better place. The other thing you said was about providing answers and information to help change people's minds. I think that's crucial, but I think it's only a very small part of it. there's a lot of people that doesn't matter how many facts and figures you give them, their beliefs are so deep seated that they just can't let go of them. Doesn't matter how much facts you give them. And I think for them it's just going to take a lot of time, and they need a big reason to justify, if not to other people, to themselves, why they should change their mind, you know. So yeah, that's the difficult ones, I think. I don't know what we do with it.
Okay, so while the rest of these are thinking of other questions, I was going to say three things. First of all, Charlie's point about democracy. The debate on Brexit in the EU and the debate on independence have been going simultaneously, and have thrown up a whole panoply of different positions. So my attitude is like, well, I voted with the EU referendum, I voted to remain as the lesser of two evils. That's how I saw it. It was the lesser of two evils to vote to remain, because I've got no faith in the EU. The EU is not a democratic organisation, never has been. The EU was set up way back in 1947 as the steel and coal community between France and Germany.
Democratic than Britain.
It's not democratic at all. There's none. There's no democracy in the EU. They're all appointees. The European Parliament's got no powers whatsoever except for one, which is to refuse to accept their budget. But once it refuses to accept their budget, it has to take it again. So we have a Parliament, remember, you'll be old enough, Charlie, to remember there weren't any elections to the European Parliament until the 1980s. It didn't have a Parliament, right? Despite the fact it's been going since the 1940s. So it's not democratic, and my attitude is, I voted to remain, not because I've got any faith in the EU. The EU for me is a boss's club. It's run by corporations in the interest of corporations. All the treaties are set to serve the interest of the corporations. In which case you'd be saying, well, so what did you vote Remain for then? Answer being, the Leave case was driven by little Englanders like Farage and Boris Johnson, xenophobes, whose attitude that the EU was too left-wing. They refer to Thatcher. I wrote this in an SSP pamphlet. Thatcher used to refer to the common market as the EU SSR. The EU SSR, honest to God almighty. So the choice was the lesser of two evils. There wasn't a socialist choice in 2016 in that referendum. So we had to basically say, well, the lesser of two evils here, we have to vote to remain. But then as a Democrat, like you and I, you accept the result. We lost, move on. Socialists are good at that. We might not be good at other things, but you've got to learn, as a wee socialist grown up, to accept democracy. And that often, usually 9 times out of 10, means that you accept that you lost. I mean, I stand in front of you, I only ever won one election in my life. And even then, only get 5.2% of the vote. Not that one for yourself, that's the great Hodge system of the Scottish Parliament. So, I'm a Democrat, the independence movement are Democrats. We've demonstrated that we're Democrats because we lost in 2014, we accepted that we lost, and we continue to argue a case that we believe in. That's what democracy is. My attitude is that since 2016, I remember saying I was in Spain, I came back from Spain, Madrid, and I go to the Yes Cafe, and honest to God almighty, the saltire's been taken down, and there's a big blue European Union flag with the stars. And I goes, Mike, what the hell's going on? The EU. Christ almighty, what are we doing putting up an EU flag in here? The EU flag, the Lisbon Treaty, the Maastricht Treaty. These are treaties that say, for example, Scotland's not allowed to have Calmac publicly owned. Scotland's not allowed to have public owned railways. Scotland's not allowed to have public ownership. And by the way, since Calmac is publicly owned, you might wonder why does it continue to be publicly owned when the EU rules preclude it. And I can tell you why. When I was in the Scottish Parliament between 2003 and 2007, one Jack McConnell, now Lord Jack McConnell, as you well know, he stood up and he said, oh no, we can't be privatising Calmac. And it's nothing to do with it being a public company. There are exemptions under EU rules that say if it's a lifeline service, or if it's a, it was a lifeline service to the islands. So they didn't say the Calmac's nothing to do with ferries. No, it's no ferries, it's not a transport question, because we wouldn't allow to keep it in public ownership. It's a service, it's a lifeline, it's an emergency service. So in other words, they got round about it, right? But the EU rules are clear. You're not allowed to have public ownership under the EU. I could give you dozens of other examples, but I'm like, why on earth are we doing celebrating the EU? They're a bunch of shysters. And my attitude is, I say this in front of you, if Scotland wants to be a member of the EU, if we as an independent nation want to be a full member of the European Union, then let's decide it for ourselves after we're independent. And I'm not sure we would, by the way. Not sure that we would, because in those circumstances you're probably have to go and accept the euro, you're certainly going to have to accept other recommendations about budgets, etc. But that's a separate question. If we want to be in the EU, we'll come to it after we're independent. And I think that's the democratic way forward. What you're asking, Charlie, is about what will happen if Theresa May gets this deal through. And you're quite rightly having undercurrents of I don't think it'll be good for the independence movement. In the short term, you're right. Theresa May's success, if she gets one, won't be good for the independence movement, right? But I'm not sure it was all that wise of us tying independence to the EU in the first place. I think we should have separated them off. Because I felt this, you probably did. You go, hold on, you're in favour of independence for London, but you want to be part of the EU where all the decisions are taken in Brussels and it's even more centralised than London. How does that square itself? And it doesn't. And my attitude is, yes, I want to be independent from the rest of the UK, and I'll decide whether I want to be part of the EU that's going to take all their rights away in due course as a separate question. So what they do, there's no doubt about it, if Theresa May gets that deal through, the Unionists will be emboldened. They'll be emboldened, they won a victory, and that's what their argument will be. It'll be a defeat for everybody who argued against it, a defeat for Nicola Sturgeon, a defeat for Corbyn. But I think, and this alludes to Bill's question, if I can morph seamlessly into this, because the Tories in Scotland are now the standard bearers of unionism. And the reason that's the case is they're committed to it. Labour's all over the place. They don't know whether they support the union or they don't. Labour's compromised on the union now. The Labour Party used to be the standard bearers of the union. They say, Colin, people in Motherwell don't vote for the SNP. And by the way, when I first heard the argument was, you didn't vote for the SNP because you're Catholic and you'd end up in a Presbyterian majority, right? That argument's dumped completely now. Not least of all because most Catholics vote for the SNP, but it was an argument they used in the past, right? But the argument way back then is you've got British Telecom provide your phone, British Broadcasting Corporation provide your TV, British Gas your gas, it's British this, British National Health Service, British. All that's gone. That Britishness doesn't infuse our culture in Scotland. No way does it compare to what it was 40 years ago. That cultural difference has changed. And now when the census comes round, people will say, are you Scottish, and British? And the big majority of people say, I'm Scottish, not British. I'm Scottish, not British. That's how they describe themselves. I mean, I was talking before about the armistice, wasn't I? 100 years ago, people died in the British Army. They fought together, the British Army. That sense of Britishness was there even after the Second World War. So it's changed. And now, the Unionists in Scotland, their standard bearer is Ruth Davidson. What's happening is they're rallying round the Tories because the union, people who are in favour of the union, don't trust Labour to do a good job in it. They're compromised, right? Not just because Labour's on its 10th leader since devolution, which is. I mean, we should have a raffle and see if we can remember the 10 of them. You probably miss about 4 or 5 of them, right? But Richard Leonard's the latest non-entity to step up to the plate, and he emits a different message from Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn, you in favour of a second referendum? Maybe he's aye, maybe he's no, it's the Kenny Dalglish answer. Whereas Richard Leonard's going, never, never, never. There's a compromise there. Or they're not compromised, but they're conflicted. And I think what you're seeing, Bill, is in Scotland, the Tories' support is raising in the polls because people who want to protect the union believe that the Tories will die in a ditch for it, and they will. I think that there's definitely, you can't have it both ways. If there's a move to independence, those people who are moving away from independence or never supported it are going to a stronger position, which is in the Tories. And I say this to you about Jeremy Corbyn. I've known Jeremy Corbyn about 25 years. I have a lot of time for the guy. He's the MP for Islington, and I lived in Newham, which was the borough next door. I worked with him in the anti-war campaign, I worked with him in the anti-poll tax campaign. I have a great regard for the guy. Is he a socialist? You're damn right he's a socialist. Is the Labour Party socialist? No. And when you read the Financial Times, it's been clear throughout this summer the Labour Party right-wingers are going to do him in. So you have a meeting with Tom Watson, who was Gordon Brown of this parish, Gordon Brown's bag carrier in the debate between the Brownites and the Blairites, remember? Tom Watson, an arch Brownite, like so many of the others, like Jack McConnell and the rest of it, right? And then you had Mandelson, the Prince of Darkness, who was the arch Blairite. And lo and behold, this summer in Mandelson's house in London, they have a barbecue with 150 people there. Like, that wasn't a council house. 150 people at a barbecue in Mandelson's back garden. Who is it? Tom Watson. All the Brownites and Blairites burying the hatchet in an effigy of Jeremy Corbyn. And they're all planning to leave. They're planning to set up a new party. And they're planning to set up a new party on the basis Corbyn cost us the vote. That's their argument. Corbyn should have come out for Remain. But he was compromised. Yeah, he's compromised because he doesn't support the EU. He shares most of the values I share about the EU. And if Corbyn hadn't been the Labour leader, he would have come out for a Leave vote. He would have, because that's what he believes in, and I have respect for that. But because Labour's attitude is that the Remainers lost because Corbyn should have played a better role, that's the issue they're going to leave on, probably. And I think the prospects for Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party are not... I'm not optimistic about them. I don't think Corbyn will ever be the Labour Prime Minister, because these people, my MP in Edinburgh is Ian Murray, who, as you know, Ian Murray hates Jeremy Corbyn more than he hates me, BGs, right? And that's saying something, right? He hates Jeremy Corbyn. And so the Labour Party right wing have never reconciled themselves to Corbyn, but their choice is they could stay and fight to get the leadership back, but they've lost twice. So they're now thinking, we're going to go off, and Bill, you'll recognise what's held them back so far was the experience they had with the SDP. It didn't end well for them, did it? And so they were maintaining the idea that they would stay. But my expectation is, and all the evidence suggests, it's not a question of if that happens, it's a question of when. And the consequences for Corbyn then, I'm sorry to say, don't look great, because he's not going to win a general election if 100 of his MPs go off and set up another party. And so, fundamentally, my difference with Jeremy Corbyn is I believe and want to see the same things Jeremy Corbyn does. The idea that Jeremy Corbyn is an anti-Semite I find offensive, quite frankly, given his record of support for the Palestinians and what he's done as an internationalist. Right, Corbyn's ideas and what Jeremy Corbyn wants to see is similar to mine. The difference is he doesn't support independence because he hangs on to that idea that the British working class must hang together to fight the British ruling classes. And I have a lot of sympathy with that. That's a class perspective. But what it fails to understand is that Liverpool, London, the Midlands, Yorkshire, the North East of England, which are all working class redoubts and have been for Labour for 100 years, none of them are nations. Scotland is a nation. We are entitled to self-determination as a nation. That's not to say that the people in the North East of England or Newcastle or Liverpool or London or wherever else, they want to have greater devolution, that's their right, but it's not a nation. The question doesn't transcend. And therefore, if Scotland as a nation wishes to have its independence, then socialists should support it, and they do support it. It wasn't argued in 1947, we can't allow India to have its independence for the British Empire because that would undermine the empire-wide struggle against the ruling classes. You would say, of course, they have to have the right to independence. Ireland has to have its right to independence, they're a nation. And therefore, my difference with Jeremy Corbyn is over independence and over the Labour Party. I've been a Labour Party member. The Labour Party is the second cricketing 11 for the ruling classes in this country. That's the role that they've played historically, that's the role that they play today. And finally, in Roy's question about 2008 and your grandkids, Roy, I think this is one of the most potent driving influences behind the independence movement, because I look around the room and we're all here entitled, quite rightly as human beings, to say, I worked my guts out so that my kids would have an easier life than me. I worked my guts out to ensure that my grandkids had an easier life than me growing up in Kirkcaldy. And all the evidence in front of us today, all the evidence in front of us shows your kids are destined to have a harder life than you did. Your grandkids are destined to have a harder life than even them. There's a set of Scottish socialist voices I've left for you to look at, and I've reviewed a book by a guy called Slavoj Zizek. Slavoj Zizek's a Slovenian. He's a socialist, he's an academic and a writer and an activist, and he's written a book called Like a Thief in Broad Daylight. And he throws up two themes in the book. One is that The bosses today used to dress up in the past, in Motherwell or Kirkcaldy in the 1970s and 80s, used to dress up their thieving of your wages and say, oh no, it's for investment, Colin, we'd like to give you more money and all that, more wages, we'd like to give you 2 weeks holiday in the summer, but we need to invest in new plant and equipment and the rest of it, right? As they drove about in their Mercedes off to live in Bearsden, right? In the past, they used to at least conceal the fact they were ripping you off. ZZ's team now is, they're doing it in broad daylight. It's like the burglar that comes in and steals your telly while you're watching it, rather than when you're asleep in the middle of the night. And he's saying that's what they're like. The extent of exploitation is now so rapacious and so brutal. And he gives 3 pieces of evidence. One is that of decline in wages in Britain and other countries, but in Britain between 2008 and 2018, in other words, the decade after the financial crash, was the longest prolonged decline in wages for working people in Britain since the Napoleonic Wars. That decade, 2008 to 2018, the longest decline in wages, real wages for working people since the Napoleonic Wars 200 years ago. So in other words, more pronounced than the 1930s. The 1930s. Men standing in the corner in Kirkcaldy with wooden shoes on because the pits weren't taking on work. We've suffered a decline in our wages 2008 to 2018 worse than any decade in 200 years. He also points up that in America, if you were born after the Second World War, you could expect your standard of living to be twice as good as your parents'. Increased wages, more work, buy your own house, etc. Now, kids born in America today can expect a life standard half the value of their parents'. In America, I don't know if you've seen it, I thought this was absolutely shocking. For the first time since the Second World War, life expectancy in America fell last year. Only by 3 months for men, from 77 to 76.9. But it's explained by an epidemic of heroin poisoning, fentanyl. In America, because they don't have an NHS, you buy the cheapest insurance policy you can get. And so you go to the doctor and the doctor says, this is what's wrong with you, Roy. You need a scan, you need a hip replacement, etc. Bad news, your insurance policy only covers you for tablets. So you're hobbling along Kirkcaldy Main Street, crippled with arthritis, you need a new hip replacement, but you can only get tablets. So what do you get? Painkillers, fentanyl, heroin. 25,000 Americans died last year of heroin, poisoning, prescription drugs. They didn't get it for the local gangster with his AK-47, prescribed by the doctors. The average life expectancy in America, the richest country in the world, is going down because there's tens of millions of people being left behind. And then you wonder why they voted for Trump as against the establishment candidate Hillary Clinton. So Zizek writes about this in his book, and you have to because you get no choice. Draw the conclusion. My kids are going to have to go through a harder life than I did. My mum and dad, who retired and got a pension, my kids will not get a pension. God knows what grand. And I happen to think that is one of the big drivers for independence. People are latching on to independence. I'm not sure I understand all the arguments, but by Christ, it's the only life belt left. I don't trust Labour anymore. I'd never vote for the Tories or Lib Dems. Independence has got to be the way out of this, or we're screwed. And that's often, they wouldn't explain it like that, but that's what they're saying. And they happen to be right, because the way this goes is it spirals down. Hands up who thinks it gets any better. Where's the 5th Cavalry? And Zizek's making the point about those activists like us on the left, particularly because he's a left-winger and socialist, are saying, where is the left today? I read the book when I was in Venice on my anniversary. And they've been to Venice. Beautiful. Gran Canal and all that. I was fair sick there sitting there reading this book anyway. But Italy, in the 1980s, there was 1 million members of the Italian Communist Party. It was the biggest communist party in the Western world. 1 million members. Honourable traditioner Antonio Gramsci and others. Today it doesn't even exist. And Italy is run by a neo-fascist government called the Northern League. By Christ Almighty. Tell me how things are getting worse when the evidence is all around us. So I think that's the passion behind independence. I make no bones for it. This is my pension. Independence is my pension. It's my hope for my kids and my grandkids. And therefore I completely agree with Roy, and I think that's widespread. And I hope that the whole Brexit experience in due course after the initial setback of it will accelerate that idea. This is our only lifebelt here. This is our only way out, otherwise our kids are going to face worse. Our grandkids worse still, and it doesn't bear thinking about.
Just one thing on that, and it's a man I've never really agreed with, David Cameron. But do you not think this idea he's got the workplace pension is a good idea?
I think people paying for a pension, and that's a good idea, except that what he's essentially saying is the state pension's failed you.
It's not saying that, he's admitting it.
Well, then that's terrible. That's doing to him. The state pension, remember, was fought, if I can say this, Charlie, by your parents' generation.
That's right.
We didn't have a pension.
No,
And it was fought for on the basis of people who retired from Francis and Seafield and the colliery, worked 60 year or 50 year in the pit, crippled with arthritis and lung diseases. They had to be taken care of in retirement. You couldn't just cast them aside and let them die in the street, etc. It was our class who fought for pensions, and if he's saying you want people to contribute more, it's part of what I think we can safely say and proudly say. During the debate on independence on pensions, we said, hold on a minute here. They're offering you a triple whammy. With pensions, the British state is saying you're going to have to work longer, pay in more, and expect less when you get to claim it. And our attitude is, no, screw that. What about working less long? We already work too long in our life. What about getting some of these bastards putting into the pot instead of taking pensions holidays with our money? And what about giving people dignity in retirement? That's not beyond us in the 21st century. And I think our case, maybe we have to be honest about it and say our case in pensions was powerful. It put theirs in a tin pot, but we didn't effectively communicate it. And people are still worried about their pensions, understandably so. We've got to give them guarantees. I'm all for guarantees. I'm all for saying to working class people in Kirkcaldy, Burnt Island, Glenrothes, etc. See, when we get independence, men and women retire at the same age. And when you do retire, you retire into a dignified retirement. You spend that time you want to spend with your grandkids, taking on a wee holiday down the seaside, etc. Buying them a bucket spade. All that quality time you wanted and you yearned for when you were working. You get it. Rather than saying you worked to the end of your tether, you were fit to collapse, you went in the Victoria Hospital and you were dead the next day because you worked way beyond it, right? That's the values, that's what this debate's about, I think. They're not, as Bill's alluding to, these aren't socialist values, these are social democratic values. They're not, I don't believe the people of Scotland are socialist yet. I think if they stick in at their homework, they could be one day, but they're social democrats today, and these are social democratic values that are within reach. Within reach today.
I mean, I can't retire till I'm 67, seemingly in so many months. But they need to free up jobs for young people. I'm doing a job where I should be able to retire. 4 years ago, I should have retired. Now it's the case where my partner was able to retire at 65, and I'm having to work on. It used to be that women retired before men at an earlier age, and free up jobs for the young.
And do you see that argument they've been using for a decade or more, saying, well, you have to work to 67 now, because folk are living longer and there's this pensions black hole and all that, so you have to live it longer so you're tying more into it, right? And all of a sudden it comes out and they're saying, actually folk aren't living longer.
Who's living longer?
Who's living longer? And Scotland's now reached a complete dead end. They're not living longer, and of course that masquerade, that masks certain realities that we know to the place. So it looks that it's static now, but the better off are still living longer. The trouble is the poorer are living less long. Working class people's life expectancy is going down. And I've never bought this argument. The country can't afford to give you a pension when you're 60 or 65. No, we can't afford naughty. We can't afford naughty.
Politicians retire on. They should take a cut then if they can't afford to live with pensions.
Definitely, yeah. And by the way, see one of the things, next year I qualify for my bus pass. I'll be in Kirkcaldy every day. And see, that policy saved the Scottish bus system. Before it was introduced, they were like, nobody's on the bus, chuck it. Nobody's going to Burnt Island, cut that service. Nobody's going to Metal, cut that service. And all of a sudden, people in retirement going on the bus to see their sister or their brother, have coffee and methyl for a change and all that, revitalise the transport system. All of a sudden the buses have got bums on seats, which is buses are for, right? Nobody wants to see empty buses going from Kirkcaldy to Methil and back. We want them to be used. It helps people, it's good for your mental health. Get out the house, go and see your pals, go and have a coffee somewhere else, broaden your horizons. You're 70, no 700. Keep going, you know, that was not just economically, but it was a culturally and socially advantageous idea. So you've paid for it. My attitude is you worked all your life, you've paid for your pension, you're not getting any favours. You're not charity case. You work for this. Who does all the work in society? Who dug out the coal? Who caught the fish? Who made the linoleum? It's the bloody J.K. Rowlings and all them who want to leave the country and take their money with them, etc. Right? So she read a book good. Well, I've not read any of them. The point is, working people work for what they get. And it was your previous generations who insisted, see when I'm finished, I'm not just being left here with my family to take care of me. So you know you've got 7 kids, so that when you retire, the youngest one can still be looking after you and caring for you. That was a complex picture, economically driven, you know. So, no, we're fighting for everybody. Nobody gets left behind. No the youngest and no the eldest, you know. When you've got that 1 million in poverty, like I was saying before, and the majority of working folk go, that can't be right, because you've got child poverty and they don't work. And people are retired in poverty and they don't work. And they're going, it is right, because even with youngsters and people are no longer working, the chunk in the middle is so colossal that it makes a majority of the entire amount, no? So that's what we're fighting for. Sorry.
I think the thing about the pensions is that people have this idea that pensions are a benefit because it's paid out by
No,
the
you've worked, I've
DWP.
paid taxes
You've
for
paid-
your years.
You've paid in every penny
I
that
know.
you should be getting in
I
a
know.
pension, and it's criminal enough that they're not letting you have it when you should have got it, but they didn't tell you. So it's well documented that the government were faulty because they decided that you wouldn't get paid your pension, but they didn't tell any of the women. None of the women were told until, I mean, I found out by accident when I came home from France and just wanted to phone and check, and I was told that I wasn't going to be getting my pension until years later, and losing out thousands and thousands of pounds. So in some cases they're losing out £30,000 that they've paid into. That's our money.
But your thing is this, that today the majority of what you get in your pension is benefits. It's the way the British government pay it. You get, my pension is £115 a week. I get a further £33 social security allowance to bring me up to what they reckon is a living standard. Above that, I get a council tax rebate and I get rent rebate. And what I actually get in the way of council tax rebate, rent rebate, and that benefit is £120, which is more than I get in pension. And all of that is benefit. Now, if I decide I can't live on what I'm getting, I want to go out and get a wee job. It's pointless for the simple reason I would have to earn a minimum of £120 a week before I get anything for myself, because they'll take the rest of that off me.
And there's cards over there that show that the UK pensions are about the 3rd lowest in the developed world.
Yeah, so the Greeks get.
Yes.
Greece, that's a really poor country.
Even Croatia and Bulgaria are more than us.
The Isle of Man, now I've got a father who lives in Isle of Man, and it is a British
Tax colony.
You know, it's not, it comes under British control, although it's not British, it's a foreign country, Crown Protectorate, same as Gibraltar is. He gets, the last time I spoke to him, which was about 3 years ago, on his pension. I'll speak to him on other things, but the last time we spoke about pensions, he was receiving £290 a week. Now, what he actually gets, he gets no council tax benefit, he gets no rent rebate, he gets no social security, he gets £290 a week. He pays his rent, he pays his council tax. If he wants to work and get a wee job, they don't come along to him and say, oh, well, wait a minute, you've got £290, but there's rent and rates in that, so we'll take a bit off you. All they take off him is the tax he earns. And he actually goes out and works part-time in a hotel during the summer months. And he gets about £150 a week. And he pays tax on
And
it.
he's buying
And
things, so he's
exactly.
contributing to the local economy.
It's contributing to the economy. And not only that, but if you take his pension and subtract from it his rent and his council tax, he still ends up about £20 a week better off than I am after I receive my pension and my social security benefits.
Aye, but be fair, Charlie, he's not got nuclear weapons, has he?
And so what we're going to do, what we're going to do about the pensioners, what we're going to do about...
He's got no protection in the event of a nuclear war, because he can't fire.
And the Chinese are threatening to take over the Isle of Man any day, remember?
I think we should build a moat, okay, remember, we need them, eh?
What's your question?
I just wanted to bring it back to independence.
Good idea.
And I totally agree with you and have long held the view that Theresa May will get this through the Parliament. I absolutely think that's going to happen. I also think on the back of that, she will be hailed some kind of hero. So I think you're absolutely right in your analogy of how this is all going to pan out. And I think you're right in saying this is not the time to jump into an independence election, referendum, sorry. But my concern is there's lots of people champing at the bit. There is a growth from grassroots again, getting excited about this. How do we hold that together? Because there's splits, and I can read them online. There are people starting to talk like Billy's, which is completely understandable. Lots of other people, lots of different ideas about how Scotland should be, which I don't remember for 2014, and it concerns me that it dissipates, this feeling dissipates as time goes on and Theresa gets her good publicity that I'm absolutely convinced is coming for her, and all the things you said about how that will knock on.
That's a good question. I'm glad you raised it, because it's a sense of, we have to be honest with ourselves and realistic. Lenin, dare I say, mention his name in Kirkcaldy, who offered this advice, ours is not to laugh or cry, but understand, right? So we're supporters of independence, and what we need to do is understand, right? Theresa May gets it through. It's not the end of the world. You know, the independence movement continues. I think it's a question of how do we best use our time. So we have to address those things that are important to us. Improving our economic case, that's got to be a given, right? We've got to do a better economic case than we did the last time, right? The other thing, I think, energising people can be done in different ways. I was on all in the one banner matches. I'm involved in the Scottish Independence Convention, support my Yes Cafe. I do all of that, but I've also got time to think about our tactics as a movement. We need to be more flexible about. I've never been convinced, on IndyRef 2, I've never been convinced you're going to get a Section 30 order through Westminster. See, the last time they granted it, right, they were trying to call our bluff. David Cameron, that Charlie mentions, meets with Alex Salmond and says, right, you can have a Section 30 order, you can have an official referendum, because we're going to pump you. We're going to win it, we know we're going to win it, and that'll kill it for a generation, right? And the truth is, Cameron writes in his memoirs, they never thought we'd get anywhere near 45%. They were overconfident, they were complacent even. And they've drawn the conclusion... Well, they've drawn the conclusion, they're not going to make the same mistake twice. So they're clear, and I don't take everything they say as gospel, right? But there's some things you have to draw conclusions and say, they're not going to give Scotland a second Section 30 order. It's not going to happen. So the question then rebounds to us, okay, so what are we going to do then? And I don't think the right approach is to say, we'll just have an unofficial one. We'll turn it into an Edinburgh Festival fringe show that means nothing. Because what happened in Catalonia when the Spanish government did that? What happened? They got a massive yes, but the No campaign boycotted it. So half the population who don't support independence just never showed. That's what they'll do. They're not stupid, right? So the question for us is, okay, so if it's not a second referendum, precisely how do we envisage Scotland becoming independent? Are we talking about civil disobedience? Are we talking about other tactics? I've seen Joanna Cherry, who I know, Joanna Cherry raised at the SNP, I think there's a fringe meeting at the SNP conference, maybe we should talk about a general election. And I think that's valuable that she puts it in there. But I'm not in the SNP, but I do remember the SNP saying, if ever was a majority of Scottish MPs returned to Westminster for the SNP, that would be tantamount to a declaration of independence. Well, we had 56 out of 59, and it never happened. We had 50, there's been a majority since 2011 in effect in the Scottish Parliament of SNP MSPs, and it wasn't invoked that way either. So all I'm saying is, I think we should give time to what is our tactic now. In other words, those friends here who are in the SNP know better than me. The SNP didn't always support a referendum, did they? Their argument was, we get a majority of MPs, that's it. We get a majority of MSPs at Holyrood, that's it. And then it was a referendum later on. And I actually think the idea of a single issue, one question, one answer was clever. It was the right thing. What you do, you centralise it. This is the issue. Take your side, right? Because you know what politicians are like. It was in our manifesto. There was tea bags in my manifesto and all, right, but it doesn't mean there are 1,000 things in that manifesto and you pick and choose what ones you like, what ones you don't like. So the referendum question was fitting, right and proper for the time, but it's now an avenue that's dead-end, it's closed off to us. I was involved in the anti-poll tax campaign, which is the biggest civil disobedience project I've ever been involved in, where people says, I've no got the money and I'm no paying it. Send in the sheriff officers, do what you have to do, I've no got it and I'm no paying it. 16 million people did they pay it, it took Thatcher out the picture, didn't it? So, civil disobedience, clearly there's the armed struggle, national liberation struggles, people around the world have fought for their independence using those techniques. I don't think it's necessarily suitable for Scotland, otherwise I'd be up the Pentlands with my AK-47 practising just now. But we have to give attention to what is the method and the route. We see, once we get a majority, what we're going to do then, if they won't allow us to deploy that majority, we have to say, well, the population of Scotland want independence, it's our national right to self-determination, but they won't give us a referendum, well then we're going to have to protest, picket the parliament, disrupt public affairs, civil disobedience, there are things that we have to do. And I think that's a good use of our time for the next 3 or 4 years. Given, we improve the case, we improve our tactics, and we do more to improve our organisation, because the Yes case, to be honest, is disorganised just now. It's disorganised.
But Graham, I think we're up against it with the media. We've seen the BBC, we've seen STV, the lies that we had to put up with and the deceit that we had over the 2014 campaign, it was outrageous, and we don't seem to have a decent voice. We'll get the occasional Leslie Riddick, or we'll get a word in without being interrupted when we get a politician on, but I feel that's the big unfairness we have, is we don't have a fair chance with the media.
Yeah, you're right, Bill.
I was just going to add to that a wee bit, but also take your topic. It makes a lot of sense to a lot of people to call a general election and make it all about Scottish independence. In your opinion, would the independent supporting parties get behind the SNP, or should there be an alliance of independence candidates? What would be the best way to do that, and then force the Liberals, the Conservatives and the Labour Party into either fighting separately or doing the same?
It's a good question, and it's complicated, partly because I go to a lot of Yes meetings, and there's friends in the SNP who say the SNP should give their second vote to the SSP and the Greens in the Scottish Parliament, right? And obviously that would benefit the SSP immensely. The difficulty is it's not often possible to deliver. You can't you can give people some instructions, but it's not always possible that you can deliver it right. But on the specifics that you asked me, in the 2015 general election, Stuart Hosey was standing for the deputy leadership of the SNP and had raised the idea that part of his platform, his manifesto for being the deputy leader of the SNP, is that this alliance idea should take shape, that the SNP, the Greens and the Scottish Socialist Party should offer pro-independence candidates for that general election campaign and not stand against each other, and the independence movement be instructed, encouraged to vote for the independence candidate. And obviously it would be done on the basis the overwhelming number of candidates would be for the SNP, because it's by overwhelming number of the biggest party, but they give the Greens and the SSP part of it. And I phoned them and I said that was a great idea. You could consider the SSP interested in it. Obviously it'd be done pro rata, it'd have to be determined by everybody got a fair share but a pro rata share, right? It wouldn't be fair to the Greens and the SSP to ask for the same amount of candidates, same amount of resources as a party that was so much bigger, right? Unfortunately it was jettisoned, right? And what happened is the SNP said, no, we're going to stand in all the seats ourselves, and they got 56 of the 59 seats, right? I actually think it would have been better in the long term if there had been a plethora, they used to talk about the 2003-2007 Scottish Parliament elections as being the Rainbow Coalition. You know, that there was the 6 SSP, 7 Greens, 7 independents like Margot and Dennis Canavan and Jean Turner, etc. And then you had the SNP and Labour and that. It was the most pluralistic, that's the word I was looking for. I actually think it would have been better for the independence movement as a whole to be pluralistically represented, because the danger is that the SNP and the independence movement are seen as immutable. And I have to be honest with you, I stand here on camera and say it's difficult. Sometimes it's very difficult to be in the independence movement and not be an SNP supporter. Your right to criticise is questioned. I've had people who say to me, how come you've come out against independence? And I went, when? Well, I've seen you criticising the SNP the other day. It's like, hold on a minute here. Hold on a minute. And my friends in the Greens would say the same. Not being in the SNP, sometimes you seem to have lost your right to criticise and that stuff. And therefore I think that the SNP and the independence movement being tied together immutably is a bad thing for the movement, because the ship goes down together. It would be better if there was a more pluralistic, you know, genuinely collaborative. I would say, look, I understand the SNP's point of view, right? And I support some of it and I support others. I'm proud of the fact, one of the proudest things that I ever achieved was putting forward the bill to abolish NHS prescription charges in Scotland. That was the bill that I put forward. Labour and the Tories voted it down in 2007. The SNP, some Liberals, the Independents, the Greens and the SSP supported it, but Labour and the Liberals were in power then. They voted it down. And Nicola Sturgeon sent me a letter after the 2007 election saying the SNP would pick that up again and that they would be ensuring that it got passed since they had the majority. And I gave her all the, I think it was, I wrote back saying, that's terrific news, because it's not important who does it, it's important that it happens. It's important that the 850,000 people in Scotland who are going without their prescription because they couldn't afford it, got their prescription. So I wish her all the best, and I think I take my hat off to the SNP. Prescription charges, you'd understand on a personal level, I think it's the proudest thing the Scottish Parliament ever achieved. It's up there with tuition fees, free elderly care, the things that distinguish the Scottish Parliament from Westminster. And the Scottish Socialist Party contributed to prescription charges, and we contributed to the abolition of pindings and warrant sales, because that was a promise we made to ourselves and to the people who fought the poll tax, that sending sheriff officers to houses of people to take away their property because they were poor was a draconian prehistoric method of debt recovery that we were going to make sure was eradicated and has been. So I actually think when the independence movement acts together, it's stronger than the sum of its parts. And therefore I do support the idea that, you know, we reflect on it, and it's still, to me, I still come back to the same conclusion. I think the movement's stronger with the Greens and the SSP and the SNP acting together, rather than somehow we've all got to follow in behind what Nicola says, because that's automatons, that's not what this country's like. We like a good argument, we can have a good argument and we don't fight with each other. And in the Yes movement we've proved over how many years now that we can have differences, but when we open the door we go out and we make the strongest possible case for independence. And I, as a socialist, I see independence as an enormous prize for socialist ideas. If you'd like me to be selfish about it, it's a huge advance for socialist ideas, independence in this country. And my friends in the SNP, I remember meeting Angus Robertson, said, I feel it's my job to explain to you and convince you that I'm not some Johnny-come-lately jumping in the back of the SNP here supporting independence after the independence SNP's been around since 1935. I'm committed to it for my own selfish reasons, and I'm also committed to it because the independence movement that I support in tradition can be traced back to 1916 and James Connolly, 1914 and John Maclean, 1902 and R.B. Cunningham Graham, the 1790s and Robert Burns. And I thought it necessary to persuade my colleagues in the Yes movement, I'm as passionate about this as you are. How we get there, I've got a point of view. Who's our target audience? The working class majority. That might differ for you, but the end goal is the same. And as a socialist, I've always seen independence as a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. I won't stop campaigning for social justice and socialism in a republic in this country after we're independence. And I think that's an honest, honourable and it's respected point of view.
Colin, just a point of order there, 2 points of order.
Yep.
I think it's only fair, Colin, and I think you'll agree, if you're going to be pluralistic and inclusive about the Yes movement,
Yep.
it's only fair to acknowledge the contribution made by Solidarity. I'm not a member of Solidarity anymore,
Yeah.
but I think it's only fair, Colin, you should agree with that. Second one's a more minor point of agreement, because I just realised we've been videoed here. There was a wee slip of the tongue earlier, and you said that I voted to remain in the EU. I voted Lexit, I voted to leave. I would have let that slip, but I realised that actually you recorded saying that. Those are my 2 points of order.
Points of order accepted.
Can I take it? Sorry, just a second. So, because I sort of interrupted your point, because my point was if there was an alliance candidate, then that would knock out the inherent bias in the media, because they would have to put up equal number of candidates, which is why I sort of interrupted your question.
Right.
See the point you're making in the media though, and I think that I'm sure you've discussed this dozens of times. It's really frustrating that we've got the National and they've got all the other papers. We've got constantly the BBC talking garbage as the rest of it, right? But sometimes, you know, striking a balance is more encouraging. The anti-poll tax campaign, nobody supported it in the media, and it was constant stories about wee Mrs McGinty can go to the jail. That was a downright lie. You couldn't go to jail in Scotland under sheriff officers and you got, you know, got your stuff taken away, right? You go to jail south of the border, but the anti-poll tax campaign succeeded, but never did any support the media. And the other thing about the media, you know, it's gone through a revolution of its own. When the Scotsman just saved itself from going bust at the weekend by selling itself to its creditors. Must try that one with Access. Anyway.
I don't know what party they belong to.
No, but the point is, newspapers today are. You wouldn't encourage any of your kids or grandkids to get into the newspaper industry and the idea that you get a long career there, is it? I'll leave aside reading them. And journalism's an honourable profession, but it's a bit like accountancy. They say figures don't lie, but liars can figure. Yeah. So journalists can write things depending on how they're instructed to. But the media is definitely important, because what you're driving at is it's our job to communicate our idea, communicate our message. And okay, so we're David and they're Goliath. Well, fine, roll up your sleeves, take them on, right? We got 45% the last time with no media support, did we? With no newspapers, no television. And sometimes it's because in the marketing that I've done, every marketing expert will tell you the most effective marketing, face-to-face communication with human beings. That's the gold standard, right? No, it's speaking to somebody on their doorstep, talking to somebody like this. That's the most effective communication. A leaflet doesn't cut it. Social media doesn't cut it. Television doesn't cut it. Newspapers don't cut it, because it's not a dialogue, it's a monologue. They're sending you a message. Whereas in the doorstep, you're saying you was canvassing in Kirkcaldy at the weekend, and you get 10 different points of view. So you report back to the shop, this was said in number 2, this is what's said in number 4, number 6, number 8, and they can all be different. Normally they are, don't they? And it gives you a chance to say, right, we need targeted communications to what young people are saying. You know, elderly people are understandably worried about their income, their pension, their support in retirement, etc. That's not necessarily what a 16-year-old's primary concern is, right? What you got to do about rap artists coming to Kirkcaldy because there's nobody come and sees it in here. You've got all those things to answer. So I think the media will, you know, always be against this. I don't think we'll ever get independence with the media's support, right? But that doesn't mean to say we try and neutralise their arguments and stuff like that. But the most effective thing is, remember the last time, you know, I'd tour the country. I mean, the no activists you came through were pitiful. I mean, when you think back to Jim Murphy on an iron brew crate, standing in an upside down iron brew crate, right, in this day and age, right? And yet the Yes movement, every town and village and every day, I remember before 2012, folk used to go, oh Colin, don't tell us the Scottish Socialist Party's having another public meeting in Kirkcaldy. Nobody will come. Public meetings are over and all that. Nobody gives a shite anymore. Go home and watch Strictly Come Ballroom dancing in the jungle, whatever else everybody's doing, right? And then within 5 minutes of the independence movement, every wee village and town and Fife, and it's saying public meeting, it's saying Yes Group, it's saying flyers and all that. And you had that revolution with a small R, didn't you? People like you were saying, Roy, I never kent politics could be so much fun. I thought it was all for weirdos and anoraks like you, man. And so after 2014 they go, we lost, but what's next, man? That was brilliant. Is there another? What else do we do now? You know, all the kind of experienced hands like Bill and I remember I went for a walk down by Flotterstone Reservoir the day after we lost, and I was greeting. I was like, oh Christ, you know, lost again, right? And my sister phoned me up and told me Alex Salmontrose resigned. That's where I was when I found the news and all that, right? And that was the sense of you're resigned to defeat, you're resigned to expecting that this would dissipate. And then the next weekend, or that weekend, 100,000 people joined the SNP, the Greens and the SSP in one weekend. I had to go and rehire the Yes shop that I'd handed the keys back to on the Friday. I was like, hey, mate, can I have it for the weekend? I had to phone up Charlie Reid and go, Charlie, could you give us £2,500 for stamps? I need to put all these replies, and I had to phone up Stephen Greenhorn, the guy who wrote Sunshine and Leaf, who's a socialist and all that. I need to get voices and all this stuff in it, and we had a week kind of corner shop operation. Not much different from this one here, I have to say. 2,000 leaflets getting stuffed and sent back to people, because I was adamant, if you'd spent Friday contacting the Scottish Socialist Party interested to join, you weren't going to get the bum's rush. No, in my party you weren't. You get a reply, you get a letter back, we're interested, hope you'll join, there's a place for you, carry on, the struggle continues, And so that sense you had of, Jesus Christ, that I think you've seen, it's why you're still going. Politics is infectious. It's the best thing to do. I've been lucky, I've been 40 years as a socialist organiser, an active, full-time socialist, and I wouldn't do anything else in my life. I'd rather be this than a steel worker, working the coke ovens, or doing the pit, or delivering ginger bottles and all that. I'm not saying you can't get fulfilment for that. I wouldn't do anything else. And if youngsters came through that door and said, Colin, with all the defeats you've had, the independents and socialists, the no winning elections and stuff like that, would you recommend that I get involved in active politics? Not a second's hesitation. No regrets.
I'm going to say there that you're right about pluralism, because it's surprising the number of folk in 2014 that I spoke to that weren't going to vote for independence because they didn't like Alex Salmond.
Yeah.
And see, to try and convince them that after independence you're going to get a vote and you can vote for who the hell you like.
Yeah.
That if it had been pluralistic, that all the different parties were sharing it,
Yeah.
then that aspect would have been brought right to the front.
Yeah, you're right, Charlie. That'll be Nicola the next time
One
round.
of the other things that you were saying there about, you go to door number 2 and they tell you something, door number 4 they tell you something else, door number 10 tells you something different. Now, at the moment, and I didn't care how I get through to them to tell them or to get anybody's interest, the Scottish National Party has the second largest membership in Britain, 120 odd thousand. If you could say to each of them, we want you to phone these 4 numbers and ask this half a dozen questions, you could have nearly 1 million people that you've got their opinions of. You know what way they're going to vote and you know what their objections are. You couldn't cover an awful lot of responses if you were able to do that. And I mean, all it would take is somebody sitting down there and saying, there's a Glasgow phone book, you phone those 4 numbers, you phone those 4 numbers, you phone those 4 numbers, and sending them out to their members, or even emailing to their members.
I'm a great believer in being organised, Charlie. There's no substitute being organised. You won't get independence unless you're organised, right? But the truth is, we know what people are thinking. Bill raises a good point earlier on. We know that people used to support yes and now support no because they're Corbyn supporters. A lot of people are saying, this is the vision of Scotland that I had. I now think there's a better chance of Jeremy Corbyn's Labour government getting it than an independence, right? We know that's the case. We have to try and persuade. We have to have an argument that says, look, that's entirely understandable. That's what's happened. I mean, I remember John Curtis saying support for independence had gone down 2 or 3% after the the Brexit referendum, right? But when you delved into the figures, there had been 11% of people come from no to yes on the basis they wanted to stay within the EU. So the position was more fluid. What was worrying for us is that 12% of people had went the other way, and the yes movement was slow to appreciate that were people going from yes to no. And our attitude isn't to cut them off our Christmas card list, it's to understand why they're doing it and persuade them, or take the argument and say, what is it they're saying here? They're saying that they believe the chances of those social democratic values and demands being achieved are now somehow greater with Jeremy Corbyn. And sometimes you have to say to people, okay, you have a go with that. We don't think it's ever going to happen. But sometimes it's the experience rather than the argument that will convince them. So I still think that if there's a collapse in support for the Labour Party because they got into an internal civil war, that won't just be all good for the independence movement. A lot of people invested their hope in Corbyn are saying, oh, I've been disappointed with the independence movement, now I've been disappointed that the Corbyn project didn't work. This is never going to happen, some of them will drop out. It's not just straightforward switching around, right? But the independence movement had been slow to appreciate there were reasons why we were losing support and we need to do something about it. And people who were supporting independence because they wanted Scotland to be remaining inside the EU, I was like, hold on, that's never going to happen. That's a straw man. This idea that you can support independence because somehow Scotland is going to remain inside the EU whilst the rest of Britain leaves, that's just bonkers. So their premise for coming over was clearly a dead end in which they would slide back to where they came from. So it's complicated, and I think time spent by us examining why people's points of view are fluid is a good thing. I tell you one thing we said and shouldn't forget. I remember we said up in the run up to 2014 there was a case, and it wasn't chauvinist. I'm not a nationalist, I'm a socialist. I'm very reluctant to say it's because we're Scottish some things are good, right? There's a lot of things that Scotland's contributed to the world that I'm proud of. The Enlightenment, the contribution of Burns and penicillin and all those kind of things. There's many things that Scotland has done to the world that I'm ashamed of. You know, our contribution to the Napoleonic Wars that I mentioned before, we were used by the British state to go and murder people abroad, and knowing Hamish Henderson's Freedom Come All Ye, there's a stanza in there where he talks about the young black guy terrified by the skirl of the bagpipes and the sight of the tartan, because for him it was synonymous with tanks coming down his street and soldiers shooting his family, etc. That was a legacy imposed upon us, in my view, by the British state. But what we're dealing with now, in my opinion, is we were entitled to say in 2014 Scotland possibly was the most politicised country in the entire world for a period, because you had this great, debate that virtually nobody wasn't participating in, and nobody was uninformed about it, right? And nobody was allowed not to have an opinion, right? And when you came to the figures, we had an 80% plus turnout. So it's almost like saying the only thing you can't do is no have an opinion. No voting, you're not getting allowed to vote, And that meant it was a heightened political atmosphere. My feeling is that's dissipated a wee bit. It's dissipated, and when we have another vote, or however this movement is galvanised again, that engagement will take place. But you might find that there's different landscapes, different people arguing different things. And my view, and I tried to present this in my earlier remarks, is if we persuade the majority of working class people in Scotland to support independence, given that we are the majority, then we win. What the middle class do, what the toffs do, what other people do, well, that's not going to be decisive numerically, The democratic majority will be based on what the vast majority of people like us do. That's the nature of what our country's like, And that's the prize.
Anyone else want to finish this off? Anyone? Can I just thank Colin for what's been a brilliant hour and 40 minutes? And,